And welcome. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio station KCAA, home to the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, Audible, Amazon Music, Podchaser, JioSaavn, Teehee, Rumble, and more. Why so many places? Because I want to maximize my splatter zone for more hope and happiness. This my 554th consecutive week on the air, 839 shows, 9.5 years. And I can't think of a better person to celebrate the show about hope and happiness than someone that I learned from. He's been on 25 years. I'm so delighted to have with me today a Radio Hall of Famer. Please welcome to my studio, Mark Thompson, formerly of Mark and Brian.
Good.
Welcome to the studio. I'm so glad we could make this happen.
Thank you. So much.
25 years. Mm-hmm. You have been on the air and recently inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame. That's pretty cool. But before we get started, I see the eyeballs rolling in. Please do chat, ask them questions. Give them the finger or me the finger. That's a thumbs up. Feel free to do any of that. We are live streaming on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and everywhere. So let's start with taking a bite of my gratitude sandwich. This is something I started about 8 months ago. Since coming out of the pandemic, people are kind of pissed off. I'm not happy. So we start the morning in the most positive way by we usually do 8 things, but I want to get to asking you questions. So we'll just do a couple of things that you're grateful for, and then a couple things you appreciate about yourself. So that's the top and the bottom of the bun of my gratitude sandwich. I'll start. I am grateful for living in Southern California, where it isn't storming like it is where it's difficult in other parts of the country. What are you grateful for?
I am... other than the obvious, my kids, my wife, I am grateful that, and the reason I'm grateful is because I found out that a lot of people aren't. But I am grateful that I have the ability to know exactly, precisely what it is that I want. And I am grateful that I have the drive to go get it.
Great.
And the reason that I guess I took that for granted because I thought everybody knew what they wanted to do with their life, with the day, with whatever it was. But a lot don't. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
Fantastic. So you got the top and the bottom of the bun, something that you appreciate about yourself too. Wonderful. I am grateful that I've lost 33 pounds since Valentine's Day, because I haven't been dating and because I didn't like the way I looked naked. And so I went on a Love My Body Project 2.0, and I am feeling pretty good. I'm not ready to get naked yet. However, I'm closer than I was in February. So I'm grateful for that. Go ahead.
I'm grateful that at 67, I still have hair. It doesn't always do what I want it to do. It kind of gave up on me, but it's still there. Anytime I complain about my hair, people always say, well, dude, you still have some. So I'm grateful for hair.
Yes, absolutely. And that's 2 gratitudes. One more appreciation of what you like about yourself. And the reason why I do that is a lot of people don't like themselves. And I think that's the basis of a lot of the dis-ease we have in our society and in our world. Is it's difficult to be humankind if you're not kind to yourself. So then we're looking for love in all the wrong places, looking literally for likes now with social media. So what do we like about ourselves? So one of those, I like that I love to laugh. and it's my favorite sound in the world. And so I use just about every occasion I can to find something funny about myself or the world, or without making fun of people. And we're going to talk about the changing nature of humor in our jobs. So that's mine. What do you like about yourself, Mark?
I like that for whatever reason, and I think a lot of it was built in the foundation that my mother laid as she raised me. I like the fact that I have not become callous with success of career. I care very deeply for the people that listened to me throughout my entire radio career and now. And I like the fact that I'm able to appreciate them and tell them to their face how much I appreciate them. Because when you do what it is that we do, Dr. Marissa, we are nothing without the people who listen and watch. And 100% of my appreciation goes to them. And I am very thankful that I have the ability to recognize that. There are many that are in media that are kind of, don't look at me, I'm above you, back away from me, don't talk to me. That's never been my bag. I am exactly like them, and I appreciate them for everything that I have because it came from them.
Wonderful. That is a fabulous way to finish our breakfast. Thank you, Mark, for having breakfast with me with a bite of our gratitude sandwich. Can you tell I like being affirming?
Look, Dr. Marissa, it's these days, it's hard. It feels to me like the world is on fire. There's so much dissension, the obvious war, but it goes into our own society, and I don't know, it feels like I'm afraid to do anything, say anything, because it's, I'm not on social media. I don't.
I noticed. Well, I was trying to tag you.
No. I mean, the people that I'm working with are on it, and so they make sure that I do things that people can see me and do whatever the thing is. But I just don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I thought we were in much better shape as a society. I truly did. And the last decade, more so 8 years, has shocked me as to just the hate, the dissension, the negative. I don't enjoy that. I don't like that at all. And I don't like where I think it leads. So I'm worried and concerned about the bigger picture.
And that's why I do what I do on the show, is because I want to balance out. There's plenty of shows talking about what's wrong. And we used to be able to agree to disagree. It seems like we can't do that anymore. But we're going to talk about what's good about you and your career. And I was telling him in the green room, I absolutely did learn. He's one of the pioneers in radio. Did you know when you were a kid that this is what you wanted to do?
Early on, yes. My father, I couldn't sleep as a kid. I couldn't sleep, and it was my father's fault because he would not allow any lights on in the house. I guess he was afraid we were going to burn an extra watt. So I would lay in bed in a pitch black, quiet house, and you're 8. And I don't have to tell you what the imagination of an 8 and 10-year-old can do to you when it's pitch black in your room. And I learned that if I turned on the radio, the light from the dial would illuminate my room enough so that I could see the monster that was about to consume me. And it was then that I fell in love with radio, with what it was. Because to me, what it was a friend in times of scary. And I would listen to the tonality of the voice of the jock and the records that he played. I could hear the needle hit the vinyl. I could even hear the air conditioner turn on inside the studio. And I knew, even at that young age, that if I needed to, I could pick up the phone and call, and he would answer and he would talk to me. And though I never did, it was comforting to me. And it didn't come to me at that time, but shortly after, when I realized that if I wanted to, I could be a disc jockey too. And 5 years after those terrifying nights that I laid in bed and listened to that guy, 5 years later, I became the voice at night on that very same radio station. And who knows, maybe I illuminated someone's room.
What radio station was that?
WOWL. And sadly, that's in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And sadly, I've been doing this for over 55 years. So many of the radio stations that I worked for no longer exist, as does that one. It's no longer around. But as I said, I was grateful for knowing what I wanted and the drive to go get it. And so I did know, I was aware very, very early, I want that.
So it was in your blood.
It was. It was.
Now, there's a joke in our field. You have a face for radio. I was told that at the beginning. So how has it been, the shift? Because I can remember when it was just voice, I was in the cusp. So 9.5 years ago, about a year, I was just audio. And then everybody started putting cameras in their studio. And so that was the shift. Did you remember that shift? Did you experience
that?
I
remember I was still doing radio, and I found out that a lot of people, jocks, were moving over to podcasting. But some on radio had cameras in the studio, said that listeners could watch them do it. And at that point, and it might have been something I would have considered or looked into, but for me at that particular time, my career was winding down. So we'll just wrap it up this way, because plus I don't think the company that I was working for would be happy with how much it would have cost to put cameras in the room.
Okay, that makes sense. Now let's start with the marriage, or not marriage, the partnership. You're known for Mark and Brian. 25 years on the air, KLOS, the voice of Mark and Brian in the morning. And it was 3 hours in the morning every morning?
Four.
4 hours every morning.
6
so
to 10.
How did you and Brian meet? Where did that happen?
Yeah, I was working on my radio show as a solo act. I was specifically a personality-based radio host, meaning I wasn't a disc jockey. I was a personality. And my goal was to make it to major market. And technically, major market simply means the big city. I was born in a small town, and I wanted out of it, and I wanted to be big. I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be one of the best to have ever done it. And I was working on that, and it was going very well. I had been number one twice. Before I met Brian in Birmingham. I was doing nights at 96 ERC. I was number one. And then I did afternoons at Y102 in Montgomery, and I was number one. So what I was doing was working. And a program director that I knew and loved, he and I had talked about moving up the ladder of radio into major market together. And he had told me that he had taken a new job and he was going to go get everything ready, and then he would bring me up. And he called me one day in February of 1985. I know that because I just wrote the book.
Yes.
And he presented me with an idea, and he said, "Have you ever considered taking on a partner?" And I said, no, because I hadn't. I always looked at it as me, my show, here's what I'm doing. And he presented me with this guy, Brian, who was an improvisational comedian in Chicago that he had met and gotten to know. And the problem about that for me, I had no hesitation about a partner, but Brian had never been on the radio ever. He had never seen one. And I was concerned because I thought, well, how can that possibly work? But I agreed to meet with him. And so I drove from Montgomery up to Birmingham, about a 2-hour drive, and he and I sat up all night and chatted. And I really, when I went into this meeting, I thought there's no way that I'm doing this. I'm on a clear path. I'm on a driven path. This is where I'm going. And we were chatting, and the problem was that I liked him. I did. I liked him. He was if you've ever been around a comedian, sometimes they tend to press their humor. They tend to push it, and that can become tedious and bordering on annoying. Brian didn't do that. He discussed his humor and what he liked, but at the end of the night, I discovered that Brian, held David Letterman on the same pedestal as I did. Because David taught me and anybody else that was looking in the world of entertainment broadcast that stupid stuff has a great place on the air. It doesn't have to make sense. If you think it's funny, put it on. And Brian held him in that same regard. And I thought, you know what, this could work. And I agreed to join up with him for that job. But even going into that job, I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this for this one job. We'll see where it goes. But then after that, I'm going to get back on my thing. Obviously, that was 27 years later.
Great. So you got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That's pretty amazing. However, I understand there was some bittersweetness around that.
Yeah. In the world of radio, any kind of broadcast, in fact, any business, when you are number one, you are generating massive amounts of income for the people that you work for. And Brian and I were number one for 6 years, like almost immediately after we got to LA, we hit number one. We were on fire. And when we were given our honor on the Star of the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, we had fallen off of the pedestal. We were no longer number one. In fact, we were barely in the top 10, because in the world of entertainment, that's going to happen. You have to understand that if you're lucky enough to get your 15 minutes of fame, enjoy it. Salt away your money. Because in the world of entertainment, you're hot today, but at some point, the next pretty face is going to come along and you're going to have to step aside. And you might not agree with that, and you don't have to like it. But if you're going to join the world of entertainment, you must understand that, because it is going to happen, and you're judged by the way that you deal with it. We were no longer the kings. The court no longer bent the knee. And the radio station, even though we were still viable for them, even though we were still making money for them, they just didn't care for us. We were still there, but the individual radio station, in my assessment, simply no longer cared that we were there. They were moving on to other things. And so when we were given that honor, the radio station didn't promote it. We did. And when we went down, we invited our friends, John Travolta, Kevin Pollak, Billy Bob Thornton. They all came. The radio station didn't. They were not there. And that was, to me, was hurtful. We were given this great honor, and it felt as though we were just ignored at that point. Now, I don't want to blame the call letters of KLOS, because that really wasn't who did it. That was the current management of the radio station. And, management, sometimes they move on and you get somebody else. So, yes, it was a bittersweet pill. Matter of fact, on that morning, shockingly, in Los Angeles, it was raining, which kind of, put the icing on the cake for that. However, it didn't diminish the honor of that. I do have my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and in the world of entertaining, I was able to pick where our star would go, and I chose it to go in front of the Hollywood Wax Museum. And the reason I chose that is that it is down in the district of Hollywood Boulevard where the tourists go. And the Hollywood Wax Museum is the single worst museum I have ever seen. It's shocking how bad it is. And I wanted to be in front of that. I thought that was funny. So that's where the star is.
That's a great behind story. All right. So, if you've just tuned in and you're wondering who is in my studio who has this great voice, and you may recognize it from years of waking up to him and Brian in the morning at KLOS. His name is Mark Thompson from Mark and Brian, and he's here talking about everything. And another place where he's talking about everything is his book that just got released, I believe last week, I think. And it is tell me about the book, and then we're going to go on break because I'm going to play the promo for the reason, well, one of the reasons why he wrote the book is to raise funds for a very wonderful organization. So, Mark, tell me about your book and where people can get it. And then we'll break and show the work of the Eastwood Ranch that you're supporting.
Yeah. The book was my final go. The legacy of Mark and Brian, like any kind of show, I felt it starting to fade away, and rightfully so. I get that, but I thought that for posterity, for anybody who might want to know about the show, even somebody who had never heard of it, I thought that it would be an entertaining read because, in my mind, that was a fantastic story. 27 years of great radio, personality-based radio. And the book itself obviously chronicles the show. For anyone who was listening to it, this is what's happening behind the scenes that you couldn't know about. But also the world of radio itself, which is my first and deepest love, has diminished and changed in a way that it doesn't make me happy. I'm not pleased. And I wanted to share that story. And I knew early on that it was a small book for a small group of people, but it's a good story and one that I worked as hard on as I've ever worked on anything. And I'm very proud of it. And I also, as you just kindly mentioned, I wanted to help out my friends' pets, dogs, cats, who have been my lifelong companion and given me unconditional love. And so in their memory, I'm giving 100% of the proceeds to the rescue and welfare of animals.
Fantastic. And yes, it is Eastwood, as in Clint Eastwood. His daughter is
wonderful person.
Is behind this. So we're going to be right back with more with Mark Thompson here on Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Our connection with animals is so amazing. I mean, if you have a pet, you know how unconditional their love is. It's magical. Our dogs and cats are our family. And to think that there are so many wonderful pets out there that don't get a chance to find a loving home is really heartbreaking. I founded Eastwood Ranch in 2012 after I became painfully aware of the problems in our shelter system in Southern California. Unfortunately, shelters are a little bit like a prison. Animals are kept behind bars, on concrete floors, and just in Southern California alone, we euthanize thousands of pets every month that could be adopted into loving family homes. When I saw what was going on in our shelter systems, I was angry, I was flabbergasted, I didn't know what to do, And that prompted me to decide that I needed to be part of a solution. So since 2012, Eastwood Ranch has helped facilitate the rescue of almost 1,000 animals.
So these were the first pulls for the day.
But then you go back and the shelters are full again. We need to do more than just rescue. And that's why we are building a new rescue facility and adoption center. This state-of-the-art facility in Agora Hills will be a calm and serene place for animals to decompress after the stress and trauma of being in a chaotic shelter. What this facility will do is provide temporary housing, veterinarian care, rehabilitation, and a sanctuary until pets can be placed into their permanent homes. Our goal is to rescue over 500 animals a year. The great thing about this facility is that dogs will spend their days interacting with other dogs and volunteers and potential adopters in indoor-outdoor areas and even in a swimming pool. We're going to have an indoor cattery and an outdoor cattery where cats can socialize with each other and spend time with people so that they can understand what it's like to be in a home. This facility isn't just for animals. The facility is really going to be about connecting people and animals together. We want to serve our community and we want to create a place where people can come and volunteer and help out on a daily basis, get training tips. We support spay and neuter clinics, a place where people can find their new family member. But really, it's a place where people can make a difference. Shelter pets have a certain amount of gratefulness. When I go into a shelter and I pull animals, they look at me and I know that they were just rescued. The looks on their little faces, they just want to be loved and taken care of by you. As people, we have a responsibility to take care of these animals that don't have a voice. These animals that may have been neglected or unwanted or unloved. You know, it's up to us to protect them. We are so excited about taking our rescue to the next level and helping save more animals. Please consider donating to our new facility. We couldn't do it without your support. We want to save more beautiful pets like Bacchus here. Thank you.
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome back. You're tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, home to the Asian Oprah, AM 1050, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and of course my YouTube channel, where not only you can get my past 838 shows, but who's counting? You can also get my red carpet playlist with interviews with people like John Travolta that Mark mentioned before, Quincy Jones, Halle Berry, The Temptations backstage, Jimmy Fallon. So I'm curious as to the overlap that we've gotten on some of the celebs and also to find out who your favorite guests have been. Yes, I have Mark from Mark and Brian here in studio live. If you have any questions or comments for him, please do put them in the chat. We do have a chat here from greetings from Africa. It's a wonderful supporter. And as you said, Mark, we would not be here were it not for the people who support our work, our platform, and the things that we are trying to do. And I know both of us care deeply, not only about unconditional dog, but also about humankind and trying to get that kind back into humankind. And I'm so delighted to have you, Mark. Who was your favorite guest? If you can, I'm sure there was more than one, but in 27 years, what would you say your sort of favorite one, maybe one that you thought was going to be fabulous and you were a little meh, or someone who you wished you had and didn't get them? And for me, that's the Dalai Lama. He doesn't do radio anymore, but go ahead.
Well, the answer to the question is easy. Out of 27 years, I met and interviewed thousands. But this particular guest was great on many levels. The guest was, well, first of all, I should set it up with some of the big names, like Mel Gibson. He came in and he brought 15 people with him. His managers, his agents, his publicists. I mean, we had to search the building to find enough chairs for all the people that he brought in. And a lot of the big names do that. Not that many, but that was a lot. The guest that I will always remember because of what he was and what he wasn't was Tom Cruise. Tom was coming in for Interview with a Vampire, his film. Anne Rice wrote the novel, and she was publicly displeased with the fact that they had cast Tom Cruise as the character. And so I think maybe Tom and his staff thought that he might need a little PR help. And so he agreed to come in. And as opposed to Mel Gibson, Tom came in with one person, his sister. And he came in, and I was, first of all, a massive fan of his work. And he came in and well, first of all, it began with the way he dressed. He looked much like I do today, a T-shirt and a flannel thing thrown over. He was very much comfortable in the setting. And this guy laughed. He listened. He was honest. He was engaged. He was fantastic. And as would happen on the show, whenever we had a really big name, people that worked in the building would come and try to get a glimpse of the guest, as they did with Tom. I've never seen that many. I didn't know that many people worked in the building. But as a testament to strength of character, Tom was on the air with us for 2 hours. And then by the time he walked out of our studio, there were maybe 75 people that worked in the building there in the hallway. He did not leave until he had signed every autograph, taken every picture, shook every hand, listened carefully to every story, and then he left. I've never been more impressed. In fact, quick story. We were in a commercial break, and Tom's sister had laid a bunch of photographs of Tom out in front of him. There were maybe 15. And he was looking over them because apparently he had done a story for, I think it was Vanity Fair magazine. And part of the agreement was that Tom himself would pick the photograph that would go on the cover. And so he was perusing these photographs, and he looked at me and he said, "What do you think?" And I stepped over, and after I looked, there was one of Tom standing on the edge of a cliff, and he had a shirt unbuttoned and his arms out, and the wind was blowing his shirt back. And I said, "That's the one." And he looked at his picture, and he told his sister, "That's it." A month later, I saw that magazine at Barnes and Noble and the photograph that I had chosen, and he let me do that. I will forever look at him as the single greatest experienced guest that we ever had.
Well, that's pretty cool. because you've had also Stevie Nicks on there. You've had half of the Partridge Family. I've had half of the Happy Days family, but you had half of the Partridge Family, and you are actually good friends with Danny Bonaducci.
Very good friends.
So,
I'm very
yeah.
concerned about
Yeah,
Danny.
what's going on?
I spoke to him. This was several months, like 6 months ago. He had to step away from his radio show. He does radio in Seattle. He had to step away because he had experienced an inability to walk stable. He was having trouble finding his words, and he stepped away because they couldn't diagnose it. Danny believed that it was the beginning of a stroke. But he got better and he went back on the show, and now he's had to step away again. So I don't know. I spoke with him. I had a live show this past a week, and Danny was scheduled to come. He had to cancel. So I'm very, very worried about him and where it's going.
Yeah. And a breath of peace and comfort out to you, Danny, and just knowing that there's going to be whole health and healing. That's tough. It's tough watching anyone, Michael Fox, when he came down with Parkinson's, Bruce Willis, the importance of health. It doesn't really matter what you've done if you don't have your health. It's truly true, right?
It 100% is true any day.
Yeah.
And all you need is to get really, really, really sick one time, and you're taught that lesson. Any day you're healthy is a great day. And I do know in 67 years, I do know that we've watched many, as you were just saying, Dr. Marissa, that have been diagnosed with this or that. And of course, it's human nature for us to go, oh, that's too bad. Sorry to hear that. I hope they get better. Our day is coming. We're all human beings. This is going to happen. And so any comfort that I can bring to anyone that I know that is suffering with that, I'm there for them. And I certainly hope that they know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough part of life.
Yeah. Well, one of my best shows was when I celebrated 8 years. I had Ralph Malph come back on, Don Most, and his wife, who has Parkinson's, came on, and she rarely does interviews. And it was like life-changing, just like yours with Tom Cruise. Although I'm sure if I had Tom Cruise, that might be life-changing as well. You can put a good word in for me. But talk to me about your show. You're doing it with your wife now, and people can actually tune in. You're on the air again, or podcasting. So how do people find you?
When I stepped away from Mark and Brian, I will forever love putting on a set of headphones and talking into a mic. I'll never, ever get over that. So I thought we'll just have some fun on a podcast. My wife and I have always had a humorous banter back and forth with each other. And the former Mark and Brian fans were very embracing of that. And it is called the Mark and Linda Podcast. Our website and our business is mnlstudios.com, mnlstudios.com. That's where you can see all the shows and our dogs and the whole thing. We're just in there having a good time. We don't even take commercial breaks.
That's awesome. Now, how did you meet your wife?
Met her in Savannah, Georgia. I was there doing a morning show, and a buddy of mine said, hey, my wife runs the cheerleader squad over at Savannah College. She's got one that she thinks you might want to meet. And I put it in the book. I frankly didn't. I was on career path. I was driven. I was thinking about nothing but that. And I didn't want to date. I didn't want to go out with any, the thing where you take a shower and pick them up. I just didn't want to do that. But I agreed because I was going to do one of those embarrassing things where they put the DJ in a giant fortress of cola, and the DJ can't get out until they sell all the cola for charity. It was one of those. And so she came by there, and we met, and our conversation was strained because we were both embarrassed. But obviously, I wound up calling. And we got married there in Savannah, and then she launched herself along with me on the life of on Radio Road, traveling town to town. I've never really asked her whether she liked it or not, but she was certainly good at it. As soon as I told her I took a new job, that gal could have the house boxed up, taped, and ready to go in 3 days.
Fantastic. So peace in, peace out to Linda. And thank you for supporting. I always give credit when there's a successful partner to the other one who absolutely helps make that success real. So tell me about Elvis in the Rose Parade. That was one of the teasers on the sheet.
Yeah, we wanted to say I'm sorry to Graceland. We first wanted to broadcast from their tour. They had just opened it, the tour of Elvis's house, Graceland. So we called them and we asked permission to broadcast from inside. They said no. And we disagreed with that answer. So we went anyway, and we had the engineering department outfit small umbrellas with microphones in the handle. And we went in the tour and we're broadcasting live from inside. No one knew it but us. And then we got arrested by the Elvis police in the TV room where Elvis would watch 3 TVs at one time. We got arrested in there and kicked out. So we wanted to say, I'm sorry, because the people at the Rose Parade had called us and said, look, in the Rose Parade this year, we've got a 10-foot tall Elvis head covered in roses. Do you want it? And we were like, duh. So we did what anybody would. We strapped it to an 18-wheel truck and we drove it across country to Memphis to give it to Graceland as we're sorry. And they would, forgive us and embrace us again. So we got there and we parked the 18-wheel truck in front of the famous Elvis gates to give them our gift. The problem was that parking in the gates, we blocked the tour vans that couldn't leave or get in to Graceland. And then the Memphis police came. And by this time, Brian and I were walking up and down Elvis Presley Boulevard, broadcasting live with our truck still there. Horns are blaring. And shockingly, the Memphis police were simply directing traffic around the truck. They never once told us to move your truck.
Oh, no.
So it stayed there for 2 hours until the president of Graceland, Elvis Enterprises, came out and threatened us that he wanted to shoot us in the head. And we were kicked out of Graceland for life. And so I've been banned from Graceland. So is Brian. We can't go back, even though I do all the time, and they don't know it.
That's amazing. Not once do you get kicked out by the police, twice. I think you hold the record. I don't know anybody else that has that as part of their name.
And listen, I'm only 67. It could still happen again. I've got time.
I'll have to reconnect with Priscilla. I got her on the red carpet one time. Well, next time I see her, I'll ask. Thank you to all the Instagram people. I am Michael, Beautifully Human Coaching. Thanks for joining in. I see eyeballs rolling in from YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And thank you for giving Mark the finger for that story just now. Your thumbs up. So did you ever get in trouble on the air? So did you ever cross that line? Because you and Brian were known for your antics too. That was part of your show.
Yeah.
Right?
We were constantly in trouble. We were one of the first to really push the envelope and do things and say things that most other people didn't say and do. And it was what people were attracted to, most of them. And while 95% of the listening audience were happy with that kind of a thing, the other 5% would call and bitch about it. And so we were removed from the air on several occasions for days at a time. So yes, we were the bad boys of radio there when we first got to LA. We didn't really realize we were being that bad because frankly, we weren't. But of course, the rules and regulations of the FCC are fairly stringent. So we were working our way around that, doing things that were based on the FCC rules and regulations were legal, but it was still upsetting people. And yes, we were constantly in trouble.
Did you get fined? Because I know if I drop any words, it's a $20,000 FCC violation. Did you ever get fined?
Not directly by the FCC. There was a fine from the radio station for something that Brian said, which I can't repeat here. I don't know what he was thinking. But yes, there was a fine involved that was not FCC related, station related.
Got it. Got it. And all of these stories and more, if you want to know the inside, you're going to have to get Mark's book that just came out. What's the name of the book? I'm going to go try to get that picture of the cover again. And where to get it.
The book is Don't Bump the Record, Kid, My Adventures with Mark and Brian. We are self-published, and the reason is because I found out what the publishing business takes as their percentage, and there's no way I'm doing that. So we are self-published. We have the soft cover, the ebook, and the audiobook, which is selling incredibly well. I narrate it. It's scored with music, and we actually drop clips of the Mark and Brian program into it. And so it's easy to get. 100% of the proceeds of your money will go to feed puppies and kittens. You can buy the book at my website, myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com. myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com, and pick your version and have at it.
All right. I did not get that one, but I did get this one, which is your M&L Studios, which also shows the book.
Yep.
And then the other one, I'll put in the chat.
That's my dog Walker right below there.
It's your dog. Oh, your dog Walker?
Yeah.
Oh, he's so cute. What kind of dog?
He is a golden doodle.
Oh, he's
very loving, very caring.
Yeah.
I adore that idiot.
Well,
So
I'm
if you do want to pick up a copy, you just go to myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com, and you'll help feed dogs like that one right there.
with Mark and Linda.
No,
Mark and Brian.
myadventureswithmarkandbrian.com.
All right. I'm putting this in the chat, and that way you can go directly there and get Brian's book. Now, I heard a rumor, and I was surprised that after 25 years together, you guys didn't talk anymore until you re-met at the Radio Hall of Fame. So when I heard that, I thought, oh, was there conflict or something happened, and that's why they finished the show or whatever. But now I have you here. I can get the non-rumor. Are you friends? Are things like you told me the beginning of the relationship? What's going on?
Well, it's like any relationship. Ours was 27 years. It was glorious at the beginning, and like relationships, like any marriage, because that's kind of what it was, our relationship became strained. There was no big falling out. There was no, but I think the best way to put it is we had David Lee Roth of Van Halen on the show, and he was talking about working with people for long periods of time. And David said, we would be in another town on tour. We're in another town, in another hotel room, sitting there, all of us eating room service. And I would look over at Eddie and I would say, you know what, man, I hate the way you chew. And it really is indicative of what happens in that. It's true what they say, familiarity breeds contempt. To be honest, what happened with Brian and I, and it was 27 years, we would spend 10 to 12 to 15 hours a day together. We just got to where we hated the way each other chewed. And that's going to happen, and did. And I didn't leave because of that. I left because I had done everything that I could to help that show. I had drained every drop of juice from the fruit, and I decided that I wanted to do something else, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I stepped away, and I've never regretted it.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, you know that they say that success is known when to walk, when to hold, and when to fold.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, your huge honor to be inducted into the Radio Hall of Fame.
My greatest honor.
Yeah. How did you find out? Sort of, that moment, like when a man went to the moon.
Yeah.
You'll never forget where you were.
Yeah. There was a young lady who worked with us, with Mark and Brian, and she had launched a one-woman campaign to get us in the Hall of Fame. And the first year of her attempts, even though we had way more votes than anybody else, we didn't get in. But we did go in the next year. Laura called me and tearfully told me that it was happening. And this was 2020, so there wasn't, because of COVID, there wasn't a ceremony except on the radio. We did that. And then I was scheduled. I just honestly got back from Chicago for my induction into the Radio Hall of Fame. And out of the many accolades that my career has afforded me, and I'm proud of each one of them, there will never be anything that matches the honor of being inducted into a very small room of the greatest to have ever done it. And to know that this kid who couldn't sleep in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, would one day become not only successful, but chosen as one of the great few to ever do it. I can't, there's no way that I can possibly put into words exactly what that means. It's massively huge for me.
Well, I'm super proud of you, and I'm really glad that I got to know you on a little more intimate level than just hearing you in my ear, in my car. I am so glad that you're still doing what you're doing. And would you have a final word here before we go out? Oh, I know that I think Casey Kasem is in the Radio Hall of Fame. His daughter was a guest of mine.
Yeah.
So that was a huge, she talked about the elder abuse and that whole story.
Yeah. I knew of that. That's, I hate that because Casey Kasem is one of the greatest broadcasters in history. And that's not fair that he went out that way. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, Casey, God. Final word. Look, people, there are two dates we have in our life. One date, which is the day you were born. The other date is the day that you'll die. And that space in between there, that's your life. And there is one person who decides what you do with your life, and that's you. I say it in the book. If you're unhappy with the way that your life is, don't wish that you had another life. Change the one you have. That power is within you. And I would recommend to each one of you, if there's something you're unhappy about, change it, because only you can.
Perfect way to end this fabulous episode of my show with Mark Thompson from Mark and Brian. Can you do this with me? This is how I sign out. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Mark, for being here with me. Now go and have the best day ever.